Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday morning Bible study here in parts unknown in central Mississippi. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to look at forgiveness in Second Corinthians chapter 2 and see what God has to say about simple little things in there. So, as always, we're going to share screen and take it from there. The New Testament is set up in three different ways, or the whole Bible. It's either doctrine, reproof, or correction. Those are the ways that God communicates with us. He tells us the right way to do things, doctrine. In Paul's epistles, it's laid out exactly the way in that format. Romans is the doctrinal part of what is the real New Testament, the new way of doing things based on what Jesus Christ made because of his death and resurrection. He changed everything. So everything before, which would include the Gospels was the fulfillment of the Old Testament. The New Testament began with the day of Pentecost. And then the written part of it came a few years later when it was given to Paul. So Romans is the doctrinal part of it as you and I as an individual, what Jesus Christ did for us as an individual. Then you have reproof, which is Colossians. And the reproof part of it is two whole books. And then correction is a little book called Galatians. Correction is changing the way you're doing things before it becomes a habit. Correction is when getting off track has gotten to the point where it becomes a habit, then you've got to do a complete correction of what you're doing and it's all to get back to the doctrine. So you see the word you a lot more here than, say, in Ephesians, Philippians, and Colossians. That's to the church itself and how all the Christians work together to make it happen. So, but here we see you, and over there you see ye a little bit more because it's talking to the whole church, whereas this is you and me as individuals. So, this is a correction epistle of the way people's thinking has gotten out of bounds before it has become habit. So look at this teaching in light of us correcting things that we may not be looking at the right way. Second Corinthians chapter 2, verse 1. But I determined this with myself, that I would not come again to you in heaviness. For if I make you sorry, who is he then that makes me glad? But the same which is made sorry by me. I wrote this same unto you, lest when I came I should have sorrow from them whom I ought to rejoice, having confidence in you all, that my joy is the joy of you all. You as an individual altogether. If you have read the first book of Corinthians, it is blistering rebuke. I mean, it is rough. And so Paul is writing a follow-up letter to try to make things smooth out because he really did come down hard. And it shows three different times here about the way he did it. I don't want to make you sorry. I don't want to make you, I want you to rejoice. I want you to have confidence. And I don't want you to beat yourself up. I'm not here to come again to you, number one, in verse one, in heaviness. But I want you to reflect and understand why I had to rebuke you the way I did, because you're getting so far off the path. I wanted to nip it in the bud, so to speak. But he's also not writing to Jews. This is another little sideline here. These people didn't grow up with the Jewish tradition of a Messiah. These guys were pagan idol worshippers. Corinth was particularly wicked. And so these guys, not only are they having to repent and change their ways from, the Jews were expecting a Messiah to come along. And so when the Messiah comes along, they should, be joy and rejoicing that he did come and gobble it all up. We know that didn't happen, but still, these are people that had no idea about the godly foundations of the Old Testament to get us to where we are here. They had a different thing. So they had a lot more changing and renewing of the mind to get over things and to learn how to be Christians. And we see that here in verse 4. For out of much affliction and anguish of heart, I wrote unto you with many tears, not that you should be grieved, but that you might know the love which I have more abundantly unto you. I think about this we just had our grandkids, and they would get loud and rowdy and start getting off track. And Clarice and I both would have to rein them back in, so to speak. And not that we're trying to scare them or make them hurt them in any way, but to get them to understand discipline and how much more fun it is to be disciplined. And so Paul here doesn't want them to be grieved, but that you might know the love which I have more abundantly unto you. And that resonates with me when I'm trying to work with my grandkids. I'm not trying to hurt them or bring them to tears. I'm trying to let them know I do this because I love them. I do this because I want you to be the best you that you can be. And being a brat is not going to help you out when you get older. So train them up when they're young, like it says. But verse 5, if any have caused grief, he's not grieved me, but in part, that I may not overcharge you all. I don't want to overburden you with too much stuff all at once. Let's see this word overcharge. What is it? To put a burden on you, to load or to be burdensome. I don't want to overburden you with all of this stuff. Sufficient to verse 6, sufficient to such a man is this punishment which was afflicted of many. Verse 7, so that contrariwise you ought rather to and comfort, forgive and comfort, lest perhaps such a one be swallowed up with overmuch sorrow. Wherefore, I beseech you that you would confirm your love toward him. I had an incident this week where an individual um, was trying to um, go to a new church. And they started telling them, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. You can't do this. You got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing that. You have to, if you want to sit in our pew, kind of thing. And he was like, man, what do I do? I thought this was a great place to be. And now I'm not seeing that. What do I do? And so I thought about this. Forgive, forgive, comfort. You be the bigger person to forgive and comfort others. Because you don't want to, like it says here in verse 7, you don't want to be swallowed up with overmuch sorrow. They know they made a mistake. I mean, think about a little kid. When you correct them, they don't really know that they're out of bounds until you set the boundaries, right? You're not setting boundaries to punish them. You're setting boundaries for so that they can be their best. The same thing here with new believers or old believers. You see them doing something that they shouldn't be doing. It's our responsibility to bring it up to them, but you don't condemn them. You don't overburden them. You don't just pile it on. I mean, that's what overburden is. You just pile them on with blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants that. Why is this important? Wherefore, verse 8, I beseech you that you would confirm your love toward him. Verse 9, for to this end also did I write, that I may know the proof of you, whether you are obedient in all things. I want proof. What is this proof here? What does it mean? Proving trial, approved and tried character. A proof, a specimen of tried worth. Trial. Did you go to trial and come out innocent? But it's also experience and experiment, trial and error. It's not put them on trial in a court of law to condemn them for something, but I want to know the proof of you, by trial and error, by experience, whether you can be obedient in all things. Verse 10, to whom you forgive anything, and he's talking to everybody here, to whom you forgive anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything to whom I forgave it for your sakes, forgave it I in the person of Christ. Now, this is a big thing that we don't see as Christians. We have the same authority as Paul did. We have the ability, what does it say? Forgive. We have the authority to forgive, even though they deserve whatever they're guilty of. We have the power to forgive. What a powerful thing forgiveness is. And we're going to see why. Why is it so important to not overburden people, to not make them overly sorrowful, but we still need to correct them lovingly, but let them know that you love them more than anything, not that you're doing wrong. And if you're doing wrong, you can't come here. But hey, look, maybe you want to do something a little different. But why is he talking about all of this so much? Here it is, verse 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Boy, this is one that we just don't see as Christians enough. Forgiveness is the tool that Satan uses to get the upper hand on us. And because we have been ignorant of his devices, we don't see it coming. We don't understand why we drive people away by doing the things that Paul was saying up there, overburdening them. Got to do this, you got to do that. Hey, look, what you get to do is what the attitude we should have as Christians. Look what we get to do. We need to stop doing the old man stuff because we're not that same person anymore. You've gone from a Gentile to a Christian. You've gone from a Jew to a Christian. There's a difference. You're a new creation. You're not the same person anymore. You got to learn how to be this spiritual being that's based on love. But Satan will use this forgiveness issue to drive a wedge through the church. And this is the only thing in the scriptures that I've been able to find where we are warned of this certain thing that Satan uses to take advantage of us. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. For we are not ignorant of his devices. So we need to understand this as believers that this forgiveness thing is huge. And there's other places that tells us about this forgiveness is that we are to forgive other people because of what God forgave you of. Remember that. Remember that. What did God forgive you of? Should make it easier for you to forgive somebody else if you understand that. So we're going to just stop right here with this. Forgiveness is a wedge and a tool, or unforgiveness is a tool that Satan uses to drive a wedge in, through the church. Starts with one-on-one, then it gets to be church on church, half the church versus half the church. You split and get two churches, just all kinds of crazy things. And it's usually over petty things where people's pride and arrogance get in the way. And instead of forgiving, like God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven us, we just keep nagging and. Anyway, walk in love as Christ loved, and he gave himself for the whole church. We're supposed to emulate that. So be forgiving with people, be loving with people. Let them know how much you love them before you start criticizing them. But don't forget, if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, Clarice is quick to jump on it. And I'd hope Les would be too, because you love us. We love each other. We want each other to be our best. And sometimes we don't see things. Anyway, but always do it in love. Do not let Satan take advantage of us because we're not looking for his devices. Anyway, God bless. You're the best. Go out and love somebody this week.